Hello and welcome back to another behind the scenes portrait session. Today we were shooting with Millie. For this shoot we were testing out new lighting techniques so we can improve our photography and see what we can do within the studio. That being said, every scene that we shot uses relatively simple lighting. It's nothing too complex. So if you want to know how to create images like these, keep watching and we'll go through the setup, how we edit them and how we achieve the look overall. So for the first scene that we shot here, we have a simple one umbrella setup. So the umbrella we had placed high above the model, but we tilted it down so the top of the umbrella was in line with the model's head. And we were positioned the light so it was slightly forward and feathering the light across the model. This just means you get that nice shadow fall off. So nothing too complex. The model was sitting on a square box for this shot. We had the light metered at 7.5 and the camera settings were 1/60th of a second, f8, ISO 100. So the whole goal for this style of shot was to create something clean, editorial, nothing too distracting overall. We wanted it to look that very high polished, fashionable look. But we also don't want to go for flat beauty lighting because we like shadows here and we like to create contrast. And that's why we used the setup that we used. So let's jump into Lightroom and see how we edit this photo to get the end result. So to get this edit started, what we're going to do is we're going to apply our normal preset that we would for any shoot. Oh, I just lost that. So what we'll do from there is we'll adjust the white balance till we find a space that we suit. Turn the brightness up because obviously that is way too dark. From here, I don't like how model does not pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a background mask, drop that background slightly. And then what I'll do is I'll subtract the floor using a linear gradient there. So we get that white floor. From here I shall crop in so we get a nice straight edge. Not too important that we cut off some of that box. So from there we'll crop it. So nice and straight image, nicely white balanced. From here I can see the face and the colors are a bit off, so we'll fix that once we put it into Reblum. Not before, because then we'll end up with different colors when it comes to it. So from here we shall remove all of these blemishes on this box. So I'm not going to let you watch me do this because it will take a long time, but we shall return once I've removed. So that is our box nice and tidied up. So from here what I'll do is I'm going to chuck her into Reblum so we get that nice quick retouch. Now I've said this before, if you haven't used Reblum before, make sure you get it because it is honestly a game changer. It speeds up retouching, as you can see. So we'll kick that back into Lightroom now and that'll give us a TIFF file to work from. And there we go. So now that we've got our TIFF file is when I'll adjust the face to match the skin tone. So I'll go over to facial skin. I'll select the facial color that we want to remove a little bit. And then I'll just move this slider until it matches the skin tone of the body. That looks almost there, roughly there. Happy with that one. So as you can see, we all blend in now. And one final touch, I do think this image looks better in a black and white edit. So I will put this one on and just reduce a little bit of that contrast and add in some exposure, and there we have it, our final image. And as we can see, once you bring all of this together, you end up with photos like this. So moving on to scene number 2, we were using a Snoot light for this setup, and our fill light is actually a big natural window to our right or behind me. Now I like to use Snoot lights because I feel like the shapes, they just give dimension and emotion to a shot rather than just using the plain white wall and the nice natural light that we had. It makes it feel a bit more dramatic. So we shot this by angling Millie towards the light, so we were having her back lit by the Snoot itself and the fill was coming in from that big natural window like we said. And that is pretty much it for lighting setup. There's nothing too complex going on here. It's a constant light, it's a Snoot. You can pick the shape that you want to go with or the gobo, and honestly just get creative with what you can do. There's so much you can do with a Snoot. So let's jump into the edit and see how we can edit this to be the final result. So here we are in scene number 2. So again, we'll start with our base profile and set a white balance that we like. So this is looking quite nice and warm, good skin tones, and then we'll adjust the brightness from there. Now, the one thing I don't like about when we use the Snoot and obviously have a natural window fill is how bright this can be, because if this was a natural window, it wouldn't look as it does. So what I'm going to do is add a background mask to this, but then I'm going to subtract with the brush where the new window is sitting. So I'll literally just paint it in all around the squares. Shouldn't take me too long. I sometimes leave them in because it's just too much of a chore. Zoom right in and clean them out. So that is how we have that. Now if I wanted to go and add this strip back in, I would just shrink my brush, hold down Option, and then I could just paint that in. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as is. So I'll continue and just remove the full window. So now that the window is cut out from the wall, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop that exposure so I get like a nice dark wall, and it really makes the subject stand out then, as you can see. So from here, I'll chuck her into the reblum again, and then once that has finished, we'll return for any final touches that we may need. So here we are back into Lightroom with our TIFF file. Again, the facial colors don't quite match where I want them to match. So what I'll do is I'll pick the point that I want to change, and then I'll just drag those down again. And that is perfect. So there is one thing I did notice, there's a big crack on the wall up here, so I'll just quickly remove this. And then what I tend to do when I do my edits is just do one quick glance over for any professional work. So I would remove any extra imperfections here that I didn't want to have in the client's finals. So stuff like this, so little tiny things. I'd touch the walls up, but I'm not going to make you watch me do that on YouTube because it's just boring. So let's move on. And there we have it, our final edit. And once we bring it all together, you end up with images like this. And that brings us on to the third scene that we shot. So this, we were going for a silhouette shot. We wanted to create shape with the body. So we posed the model in such a manner. And for lighting, all we did is we killed all of the ambient light in the room and we moved to the white scoop. From there, we set up the Snoot high behind me with a circle attachment on. We also placed color gel over the Snoot so we could get the color of the wall. And then it's just a balancing act of placing the model close enough to you, but far enough away from the wall that you don't get that shadow popping up in your Snoot light. And if it is helpful, slightly put your Snoot off to the side, and this should help mitigate this problem. So like we said, we directed using shapes. We were creating body shapes, feminine shapes, stuff that we thought would look interesting if it was a silhouette. So let's jump into Lightroom and see how we edit this one. Now, scene number 3, now we're going for that silhouette look. So with this shot, we just need to balance our light slightly. So what we'll always do, put our profile on, and that takes us to a pretty good place. Now I want that light on the back wall to be quite bright, but obviously that is going to brighten up our subject. So what I do from here is I'll chuck on a background mask again, but I will subtract the actual light that is on the wall. This is quite hard to see because the light is orange and the outlay is red. So once we have what we're happy with there, we'll bring this down, and then if I feel like I've overdone it, I can add it in again, as you can see. So that's perfect for me, to be fair. So what I will do is I'll add a subject mask and I'll just bring that exposure down. A very simple and easy edit. Now we don't need to Photoshop this one at all because obviously we cannot see our model. So that is how I would edit this photo, and I would be quite happy with that as it is there. And once we bring it all together, we end up with images like this. Moving on to scene number 4. So for this shot, we had a light behind the model that we were using as a hair light or a backfill. And this light's just here to give a bit of dimension to the body and give that highlight on the outer side of the model. Now our main light source is coming from the giant window behind me, as you can see. So we dial in that backlight to not overpower the window. So again, nothing too complex with this light setup. We just pose the model in ways that would give shape to the body that looked flattering on her. So let's jump into Lightroom and see how we edit these. So we are going to start with what we always start with and add our first preset. Jumping over and finding a white balance that we like, somewhere around there, a little bit warmer and a little bit more pink for me, I think. Yeah, perfect. And what we'll do is we'll turn the brightness up to where we want it. From here, we'll add a little background mask and move that down a slight touch and bring that foreground back up so it makes our model pop. From here, we'll do our reblum touch-ups, and once those are finished, we'll do our final touch-ups. Honestly, when I used to do my retouching individually, it used to take me hours, and this has just sped up my workflow massively. So now we're back in with our TIFF file, and we'll do any final touch-ups that we feel we may need here. To be honest, everything's looking pretty good. If I was doing this for a client, I would touch up this box just so it wasn't so dirty, because the studio doesn't paint their boxes very often. But it seems as though this is just for YouTube and you don't want to watch me Photoshop a box. Here we are. And once we bring all of that together, we end up with shots like this. So that was our full session with Millie. 4 setups, simple lighting, all intentional. So if this has helped you and give you some ideas for your next studio shoot, give this video a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.